students. Mr. Lawrence here, and at the end of today's flip video, you will be able to say I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the length of an unknown side of a right triangle. All right, let's get right down to it. The Pythagorean theorem, you should be review. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because it should be review, but remember that it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The most important of these three is c, because c, as Mr. Alan Strauss would say, is the longest side. You could also call it the hypotenuse. All right. Hold on one second. A and B are the legs of the right triangle, okay? And it doesn't matter which side you call A or which side you call B. It does matter which side is the hypotenuse. So to test the hypotenuse, to find the hypotenuse, if you're not sure, the best thing to do is to find a right angle, like in this problem here, that's 8 by 12 by x. Find the right angle and draw an arrow from the right angle to the opposite side. You will always hit the hypotenuse in a right triangle. And I can do that over here on this one, the x1020 triangle. There we go. So I know where the hypotenuse is, the side the arrow is hitting. All right, so let's go ahead and see how to use this. And this should be a review, so I'm not going to give like a bunch of practice problems or anything. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And I do this to make sure I don't make any silly mistakes. The first thing I'm going to fill in is my hypotenuse. And in this case, my hypotenuse is unknown. Okay, so I have x squared and then 8 squared plus 12 squared. Now I'm going to simplify this left-hand side by squaring the 8 and the 12. Well, 8 squared is 64. 12 squared is gross. That is, a gross is 144. All right, and then I have x squared. Now I'm going to add together, and I think I'm going to get 208. I think that's right. So I have x squared is 208, but I'm not solving for x squared, I'm solving for x. So to undo my square, I need to take the square root. All right, and when I take the square root of both sides, I will get x on the right-hand side, and the left-hand side will get me approximately 14 4/10. That's rounded in nearest tenth, so I'm going to put the wavy equals in there. So x is approximately equal to 14 4/10 inches. And again, that's a rounded answer. Hopefully you know what kind of number the square root of 208 is. It's not a perfect square, so therefore that makes it an irrational number. I know it's been a while since we talked about those, but we have to keep that fresh in our memory. We're going to need that on the OEA. The irrational number, radical 208, or a square root of 208, is an irrational number. All right, let's come up here and see how to do this other triangle. Again, I'm going to write down the Pythagorean theorem being a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then I'm going to fill in c first, always filling in c first. Okay, now a and b don't matter on this one, so I'm going to make my variable the first one, and I'll make the 10b. All right, I know most of you are more comfortable with the variable being before a number, so that's why I chose to do that. I could have easily have written 10 squared plus x squared equals 20 squared, and I will get the same result in the end. It does not matter. Okay, because addition is commutative, right? All right, so x squared, there's nothing to do at the moment. 10 squared is 100, and 20 squared is 400. Now I have what looks like a two-step equation. It looks a little bit different because you're not used to dealing with that exponent, but that's okay. I'll treat it the same way. I'll subtract 100 from each side, and that will allow me to say that x squared equals 300. How do I undo a square? Dun, 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 dun. I take the square root. So x is going to be, I know 300 is not a perfect square. In other words, a number times itself does not equal 300. For example, I know that 10 times 10 is 100, right? 10 squared is 100. I know that 15 squared is 225, okay? I know that 17 squared is 289. 18 squared is 324. And you see, there's no whole number in between those. Now, possibly it could be a perfect square that's a decimal, but in this case, I know it's not, just from experience. So these here, if I take square roots of, say, 100 or 228 or 289 or 324, those are all rational. Because when I take their square roots, I get 10, in this case I get 15, I get 17, or I get 18, right? Oh, rational, sorry. But the square root of 300, there is no such number that I can multiply by itself to get me the square root of 300. So I know it's irrational. So I'm going to use my calculator to help me figure that out. And I'll get approximately 17 and 3/10 centimeters. And it's true we could have estimated, but with the square root of 300, I really didn't want to make you do all that estimation. So we're going to go ahead and use a calculator on that. Okay, but maybe before the OAA, we'll do some review over estimating to the nearest tenth. It's been a little while. All right, that's your lesson for today. Apologize for posting this so late. Mr. Lawrence signing off. Good night, everybody.